Hi everybody, welcome back to our channel. In today's video, what are we gonna do?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, it's your captain speaking.
Yes, that's right. Ask Captain Tony. Kakagaling ko lang ng sakit, so pasensya na sa aking bosses.
The cabin crew should have called in sick.
Yeah, called in sick. And this is supposed to be when we were doing road trip, guys, but then it didn't happen kasi it was bumpy, so we just decided to do it now because we are doing
We had turbulence on the road trip.
That's right. There is a lot of question about turbulence there, like me. Oh, I did screenshot all your questions, guys. So I'll start now kasi medyo mahaba. The first question is not a question.
Okay, well, that'll be easy to answer, won't it?
Just a comment. I always believe that pilots are super smart, right, Captain?
No.
You should be good at numbers, maths.
Yeah.
You should know. That's the main thing.
No, they don't have to be super smart, not at all, but they have to be reasonably good at, they have to have a good memory.
Memory, maths.
Maths.
Oh, well, you have to be.
Yeah, you have to.
Balance, babe.
It has to help. Yeah, but that's fine. Staying calm is the main thing.
Ah, staying calm.
Not panicking. The ability to suppress fear and anxiety.
Oh, okay. So that's not for me then.
No.
Yun ay galing kay Carol. This one is galing from Zam. What is the chance of hiring pilots in Australian can you say it?
Filipino pilots in the Australian aviation. Hard question to answer because it depends what sort of licensing you have.
Yeah. But most our Filipino pilots are studied here. It's actually there.
Yeah, there's no absolute reason why you can't be employed here. I mean, if you have, but you need Australian licensing to be employed in Australia.
That's right. So, yeah.
So if you get all your licenses in the Philippines, you would have to convert them over to Australian, which would be, for an airline job, it would be quite a big job. Expensive, you know, so I haven't had to do it.
How many countries you've been? That's a question from Andrea.
Andrea, I've never counted them.
No.
But I'm going to guess...
Almost everywhere.
Well, you'd be a bit surprised. Even Cathay, which is a global airline, they still tend to have multiple ports in one country. For example, the USA, Cathay had 6 or 7 locations, so they could go to 6 or 7 different airports, but it's only one country. But in total, I would say probably 30 something, 35.
Is that where only Cathay goes? Or?
No, I've all been places in the Air Force, and Air New Zealand. I just flew locally, so yeah, mostly 10 or 12 for the Air Force and 25 maybe, so maybe 40. I'll call it 40. How's that?
40 countries, that's a lot. Some of these are Tagalog. I just tried my best to translate it, guys. What is your advice to those who's gonna travel first time so they won't be scared?
My advice is don't be scared.
What
I mean is I don't think there's any need to be scared.
I think if you're first time, you are more excited than scared. For me, it was. For me,
most people would be excited, but
you know?
a lot of people are anxious.
Yeah.
All I could say is I think in the average year without COVID, I think more or less 1 billion people get in an aeroplane and go somewhere. So they all manage it. They're all safe.
They all get where they go.
They get their bags and they end up seeing who they want to see at the other end. So yes, it can be a bit anxious, but way more chance of having an accident on your local bus or in a jeepney.
Or, on the road than the plane.
And motorbike, about 1,000 times more dangerous.
Yeah.
just be prepared to get there early and give yourself time.
Maybe this is not related, but did you meet Kuya Tony as a pilot, or maybe when you're playing? Maybe that's what she's trying to say. Or no po? No.
Nope.
But we have a story about planes. Is it hard to be a pilot?
Depends what you mean. If you mean to get to fly, if you want to fly large jets in an airline, it takes a while. It takes at least,
Yeah, you need to fly.
usually 10 years to get a job. Sometimes less. Like right now, I believe if you were eligible for a job in the United States, you could get one straight away.
Okay.
Because they're desperately short. It's a lot of work. It's not necessarily hard. Essentially you can train two ways. One's in the military and one's in civil life. If you train in the military, you get paid to get your licenses. Essentially, if you do it outside the military, it's very expensive.
Right. Tips for the first traveler who's going to do a long haul flight in economy class. Ooh, sakit sa likod.
Well, here's the point. And it does depend how tall you are, actually.
Yeah, your legs. Oh my God.
If you were a typical Filipino female, the seat size probably won't be a problem. If you're a reasonably tall Caucasian, 6'2", then the seat would be very uncomfortable. But
Yeah.
there's really not much you can do about it.
Watch movies, just try to entertain yourself as much as you can, and then
I strongly suggest the blow-up neck braces that you pop on.
Oh yeah, that's
Because
really useful.
even in a economy class seat, when you put it back a little bit, if you can stop your head flopping around, you can actually sleep reasonably okay for a few hours. But if your head's doing this, then it wakes you up and you get a very sore neck. So get one of those. They're only a few pesos.
Neck brace.
A neck brace thing, so that your head sort of is supported. But there's not too much you can do. Just cross your fingers for a good seat, or if you can pre-book it.
Yeah.
Decide if you need to get up to the toilet every 90 minutes, then you don't want a window seat, you want one.
You want an aisle? That's me. I'm more on that aisle.
But if you're more like me, I'll sit there for 8 hours, then you can sit against the window, then other people don't.
Yeah, because I'm shy to ask people, like, excuse me, can I pass? And then I go to toilet a lot when I'm in the plane.
Yeah.
So I usually get the aisle seat. Why not flying anymore? This is a long.
Well, it's not really. There's two reasons. A, I'm too old. And,
but you're not. You're retired 6 years early.
Yeah, well, I had to retire because I had a small debilitation in one of my eyes.
Yeah.
And,
see, he was forced to retire.
Nothing dramatic, but if you don't have two good eyes, you won't keep a job.
When he gets so stressed, guys, meron siyang yung eyes niya. Like nagiging blurry yung isang side ng eyes niya, and it happens when he was doing some when he was traveling.
Yeah,
so it's not something you would like as
it's an extremely difficult ailment. They don't really know what causes it. They think sometimes lack of sleep, sometimes it's stress.
Yeah, it's mostly stress.
Sometimes it's blood pressure, but anyway, it's gone away since I stopped flying, so maybe it was going to work and stress.
Yeah, well, when you were so stressed when you had those, so that makes sense. You get it maybe once a year when you're stressed.
Yeah, I haven't had it for a couple of years at least, so.
So yeah, he was forced to retire, guys, 6 years early than he,
Medical.
Scariest flight you remember? Do you have any?
I had a few in the Air Force, scary ones. It's a very long story though. Essentially, it was a single-engine jet,
a fighter
fighter type thing, which Essentially had an engine failure out over the ocean.
Yes,
they only
I
have one
remember that.
seat. They only have one engine. So I had to turn around and glide it back towards the land.
So that's when
the weather was extremely. There was a very strong storm down at sea level. So in a fighter, you have a thing called an ejection seat, which is where you are really firmly strapped into a seat, and it has a little rocket under it. So if you pull a handle, the rocket will fire and it will blow the canopy off.
Sorry, okay.
And it will fire you out through the top of the cockpit. In a parachute will
It's like a parachute. You seen that guy?
The only problem was that's how you get out of a damaged jet fighter and live. But if it's a 150, 140 kilometre an hour storm on the ground, you probably won't live. You'll probably be either drowned or beaten to death against a fence or a tree or something. So
that was basically how.
So but anyway, I managed to just get out of that.
He was in the paper for a week. It was the popular one.
There's not much to put in the paper in New Zealand.
The pilot. But I know, you know guys what he means if you watch the Top Gun. Nag-eject sila.
Yeah, that's the same.
Same. So Tony is in Air Force before he went to commercial. What are pros and cons of being a pilot, especially being a captain?
Well, that's a big question.
That's a really good question.
Well, I'll try and go through what do you want first, the cons or the pros? The cons, you'll be, depending on the airline, but if you're talking about international across the world, you'll be away from your family a lot.
True.
You can't maintain regular hobbies. For example, you can't be part of a sports team.
Yeah, you can't have a Christmas. You can't have a birthday.
It's a 365-day-a-year job, so Christmas is just a day and your birthday's just a day. And if you happen to be working, you're working.
You're working.
The roster, it sums all that up, I guess. There's no routine in your life. But then that becomes a pro as well, because some people like me couldn't stand being at a bank, sitting at a bank desk or sitting in an office shuffling paper and talking to clients about something. So that's what suits me about it. It was definitely varied, and you went somewhere different every couple of days.
Yeah, true.
I mean, if you're thinking about money, then the money when I started was extremely good. The earnings now are not as good as they once were.
Yeah. You get good salary.
It is a good salary, yes.
Good salary, then you, like, until now we use the staff travel, that's another thing.
Yeah, you get cheap flights for travel.
Flights,
but then they have problems as well. So
yes.
Let's go all day about this one. So.
You get benefits, like, you get the house.
Oh, if you're living away from you, if you have a job in Australia, there's two types of jobs. There's a local job where you live in your own country,
own house,
and then there's a different type of job called an expat job, where an Australian or American or New Zealander will go and live in Singapore or Hong Kong or Dubai, and if you take one of those, you usually get your house.
You get a house.
Not necessarily entirely provided, but subsidised.
Yes, but it was really good, no?
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, it was fantastic when I started, and it just got worse and worse, of course, but
we did live in
the point now where it's pretty bad, I believe.
Really expensive subdivision up in the Gulf Coast, which is like, it was, say, how much is it in peso a month just to rent a house? 500?
600,000.
600,000 a month. 600 more. Bahay na yun, babe. That's a house in the Philippines.
I know, you could buy a house.
But that was a rent. But then, yun nga, we don't pay for it because the company pay for it.
They subsidise it.
Yeah.
They pay most of it.
Yeah, they pay most of it, and then until now we get the staff travel, so we get cheap flights or like almost nothing sometimes if we're gonna use the same company, like, you know, the Cathay, but we can use other airlines as well. Yeah. Tips of taking a long haul flights with hypertension. Just relax, I guess.
Yes. Well, there's no reason for your blood pressure to go up when you take a flight except anxiety. The cabin is maintained not at sea level altitude, but between 6,000 and 8,000 feet, which is not particularly high. It's like living in Baguio. Same as living in Baguio. So, hypertension, just try and relax. Yeah, don't stress about things. If you're extremely hypertensive, then maybe you should have you should be on blood pressure lowering tablets anyway, but there's nothing especially dangerous in going for a flight with hypertension.
Yeah, I would just say, just relax, guys.
Yeah.
So it will help you lower your...
Getting on and off aeroplanes is a pain, and it's just going to get worse probably because of COVID, but you just have to get through it. Hop on and think about where you're going.
Did Kuya Tony ask you to learn how to fly a plane? That's for me. Nah.
I did ask her to try getting in one, but she can't do that either.
I can't even, because I asked Tony if he wants a small plane. I said, and he said, not really in Australia, but I said, it's okay, I won't be in it anyway. Because I'm scared of small planes.
So what's
the point?
Wouldn't be much point.
So imagine me learning, gee, I can't even get in this small plane, which is when you learn, you have to use the small planes, guys. What made you decide that you want to be a pilot? Keep safe. Thank you, Judy.
That's a
really question.
I can't really answer. I can. Yes, I can identify the moment. I said to my mother I was going to be a pilot, and it was at Christchurch Airport in maybe about 1961 or 2.
This is after he wanted to be a pope, guy.
That's before the Pope.
This is before the Pope? Okay.
But I remember my mum saying to me, well, I had no chance of being a pilot because...
Yeah, it's for
rich people.
It's for rich people.
You've got to be a rich person to be a pilot, which she did, but she didn't know everything about it. But anyway, at that moment I said to myself, well, we'll see about that, Mum. And anyway, that's what happened.
I'm sure she's very proud because, you know, she didn't expect it. She didn't really.
But
she wasn't so ambitious.
She only knew that if you were doing it at
it's only for
the
rich
NIYO
people.
Club, it costs a lot of money, so we didn't have it. So anyway, there you go. 6 years old, I think, and I was watching an aeroplane called a Vickers Viscount taxi into Christchurch Airport.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so I know when it happened.
But your dad loved planes and boats.
Well, Dad took me for a flight in a light aeroplane.
Yeah. Yeah,
just for 20 minutes, and they flew from the airport to our house and went round our house a few times and went back to the airport. And which is pretty cool when I think about it, because God, that would have cost him about 25 beers.
Yeah.
And for him to give up 25 beers,
that's a big thing. Yeah.
Pretty big deal. So.
Yeah, he won't swap anything.
Not much. Anyway, so that's when it was. I'll say
that was very
6 years old. Roughly.
Yeah. Like, you know, that's a really nice story. When did you realize that you already love being a pilot?
About the second flight I did. Because before I joined the Air Force, I spent whatever little money I had in the bank and did about 10 flights at the NIYO Club, learning a little bit, but just to see, because until you think you're going to like something, but sometimes you'll then go and try it out.
Yeah, and then try out, and then you don't really like it.
But, Yeah, after I did 2 flights, I thought, yeah, this is so cool. And it was just in a little tiny 2-seat Cherokee or something like
Yeah.
that.
So this is the other question related to the other question that we had before. Is it expensive to be a pilot?
Well, if you pay for it yourself, it is. Yeah, it is quite expensive. I mean, honestly, I don't know anymore, but I would say there is a university course in Australia or in South Australia to get your pilot's license, and that's to commercial level, which means you can fly. You won't get a job on a big jet, but you'll get a job on a regional turboprop.
Yeah.
And I think the last time I asked someone, that course was about 120,000 Australian dollars.
Oh.
So you're talking what?
Expensive.
4 or 5
4
million
or 5
pesos.
million.
That would be 7 or 8 years ago. The last time I knew that. So
yeah. So
it's probably it is probably now very, very expensive. However, if you're in a country that has an air force, everyone's entitled to apply to join the military. So, which is what I did. And that's the only reason I became a pilot. I managed to get into the Air Force as a cadet pilot.
Yes.
Finished the course, which only about 40% of people manage to get through it. It's a bit rough, a bit tough.
Yeah.
And then from there you can then go and just do paper exams with the local aviation authority, and you can have a license all the way up to sort of
Commercial.
jumbo jet pilot license.
So that's what happened to Tony, guys.
Which is what happened to me. So I ended up not paying for any of it. Yeah.
Nasa ano lang siya, Air Force. Yeah.
Yep.
Aviation
industry. Yeah.
How long is Tony in the aviation industry?
Well, I'll work it out exactly.
How long in?
So 17. So 43 years.
43 years. So how many years is that in Air Force?
11.
11 in the Air Force. I mean Air New Zealand.
Couple of years there. Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah. Two something.
2 something, and then Cathay
27
26
years or
26.
something.
Yeah, okay.
Cathay, yeah.
There you go, guys. 41.
I think 43.
Did he experience emergency during a flight as a captain?
Well, it depends what you term an emergency. You can have failures. I've had several engine failures, which are not always an emergency. It might surprise you, but if you have 4 engines and you lose an engine, it's not an emergency. It's just a failure. If you have 2 engines and you lose an engine, it becomes an emergency straight away. So, yeah, we had some emergencies. Nothing
major.
No, not really. Had an engine catch fire, but that went out very quickly and didn't spread. No, nothing that you'd see on the news.
Okay.
They just happen and no one knows. The passengers don't even know usually. So they do know if an engine catches fire, yeah, but that only happened once. But
okay. Sorry guys, we're back. Nag-change ako ng battery, tapos kumuha din ako ng Lolis kasi yung aking lalamunan. Not COVID though, guys. How to deal with turbulence? I got traumatized after my previous flight. There you go. Is this for me?
Yes, well, I'm going to sit forward for turbulence because
this is a lot. This is the most asked question.
Easily the most asked question.
This is really the most asked question, which is I want you guys to listen to my husband because I am the same.
Now,
and then I married a pilot.
The main thing I need to say is
that's the words that you always told me.
The aeroplane is never going to break in turbulence.
What you usually say to me, babe, it's like a what? Bump on the roads.
Well, it's the same thing. Exactly the same. Aeroplane's road is the air. Air has bumps in it. And the aeroplane bumps over them. But yeah, sometimes it's frightening, and sometimes even locker doors fly open.
Yeah.
Things fall over in the galley. Extreme turbulence, things will fly up off your table and come back down again. But here's the point I can make. The last aeroplane that categorically crashed because of turbulence was in, I think, around 1978.
So that long, guys.
And it only happened because the captain decided to take a joyride around Mount Fuji in Japan and put the aeroplane into a piece of air that even a 707 couldn't survive. He was nowhere near where he should have been. Turbulence simply will never crash you. It can be occurring and upsetting things, but it's not going to break the aeroplane. So that's all I can really say, is that not only are they far, far tougher than they need to be, stronger, but they have computers that make sure they don't get exposed to extreme force. So even though a pilot's flying it, there are several protective systems that detect the forces on the aeroplane in different places.
Yeah.
And if forces become extreme, the computer will unload the aeroplane, which is another word for saying it reduces the stress on it. So it's never going to break. Look, it might feel like it is, it might sound like it, it's not going to. It's like when you get in a ferry, you cross an ocean in a ferry, it goes up and down and rolls around. That's because it's travelling on waves. Aeroplanes travel on waves as well. So just you can't see them, and so you don't think that they're there, but there are ways of mitigating it. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't.
Yeah, guys, this is what Tony do. Actually, kasi takot talaga ako sa turbulence. I don't like turbulence, especially the sudden drop. That scares me so much. So, New Zealand, they have a lot of hills and mountains. So, usually they get a lot of turbulence, especially doing landings. So, if it is a daytime, and Tony can see and can look to the window, and he would say, "Oh, babe, it's gonna be bumpy for 5 minutes." But it will be okay. So he gave me the assurance, like, you know, it's just going to be a little bump, that's it. So yeah, that's what he do.
Yep.
And he will just say, like, you know, it's just think about it, it's just another bump of the it's the same in the road, it's just a bump.
Yes, there's no way of avoiding them. No aeroplane's better or worse, and no airline's better or worse, within a little bit of qualification, but you're just going to have bumps in aeroplanes. It's unavoidable. Yeah. And it's also harmless. So just wait till it's over and carry on enjoying yourself.
Turbulence again. Worst experience with turbulence.
Oh yeah, I had some bad experiences with turbulence.
I had one, and someone told you are you trying to break the plane or something? You're going to Taiwan. Are you going to Taiwan then? No,
the worst one I had in the airlines was going into Penang in Malaysia.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just after I'd started actually, and I was the first officer, which is the second pilot. Yeah, and the captain decided to complete an approach, which was at night, through a thunderstorm, basically, which...
I don't like typhoon thunderstorms.
This wasn't a typhoon, it was just
a storm.
Isolated cumulonimbus cloud, which, it was pretty grim.
I had one bad experience as well. I'm with Tony, but then he did get angry with me. Because he was tired. We went to Philippines, and there is a typhoon in the Philippines. Do you remember this? You went.
Keep going.
You did the New York flight.
Oh, okay.
And then you were tired because we were catching the next flight to the Philippines, and there was a typhoon. Actually, the neighbors was the pilot because we took the same bus.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Remember na?
Yeah.
And the plane was freaking shaky the whole 2 hours. And Tony was sleeping, but I was like sweating cold. I was so scared. This is probably the first bad turbulence I had. So that when I experienced turbulence, I got traumatized because of that, I think. So he was sleeping, guys. My goodness, he was like snoring. I said, babe, I'm scared. And he said like, what are you scared of? Did you know I was just sleeping? Just get scared when I get up and I'll be like, you know, that's the time you'll panic. If when I'm sleeping, that means it's okay.
That's right. That's what I said. If it hasn't woken me up, it's nothing to worry about. So,
yeah.
Anyway, so, but that's fine. You know, I had 23,000 hours of it, and you have, you know, 200 hours. So
yeah. So that was my first bad turbulence. And then after that, little bumps already like, you know, scaring me.
Well, you expect to have a big bump after a little bump, you know.
Yeah. When should I scared? When there is a turbulence. When Tony's up and doing something.
Yeah. Yes, look, it's anxious, but it's not. You should never be scared of it.
No.
Yep, it feels uncomfortable when you think, oh my God, it's going to come apart, but it isn't going to, no.
Mm-hmm. What part of the plane is the safest? Oh my God, I never asked you this question. There is none really, but there is.
Essentially not. There's not much difference, but crashes where, if you're talking about crashes, where a few people survive and most don't, they're usually in the back end, at the back couple of rows. In terms of an emergency on the ground, like an aircraft fire, then you want to be sitting close to an emergency exit. Preferably the one at the front or the one at the back. There's also one over the wings, that's fine, but they're a little bit more...
Mostly, the survival is at the back.
Oh yeah, usually, yeah.
Because they are the last to do the impact.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you don't want to be in the middle because that's where the plane always cracks.
Well, it's sitting on top of the fuel tank as well.
Yeah.
So if there's a fire, it's going to be in the middle. It's going to start in the middle.
But then we love sitting in the middle because that's where it was just the leg room, guys.
Yes, the emergency exit doors. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think at the back and in the aisle.
In the aisle, okay.
Well, it's easier to get out, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
You don't have 2 or 3 people to climb over who may be unconscious.
What is the most unforgettable flight you've been? Do you have one?
Wow. Crikeys. Oh, look, you'd have to come back tomorrow for that one.
Yeah.
Unforgettable would probably be the one where I, you know, nearly perished, I guess, the one we talked about earlier.
Oh yeah, the one earlier, yeah.
Pretty hard to forget that one.